Welcome to Life Mastery Radio with Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey, the show that dives into the science of higher consciousness with inspiring topics such as abundance, intention, health, manifestation, love, and transformation. Join Todd, Jackie, and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery. It's all right here with stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Now, here's your hosts, Todd and Jackie.
Hey, it's another groovy day, and most of you know, but I'm going to tell you anyway, that's because I make it that way. Oh, my little early warning device is going off in the background.
That's okay. He's not too loud from my end.
He interrupted. Oh, you can barely hear him? That's cool.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's also a groovy day because I get to hang out with my good friend Jackie. And Jackie and I, every week, bring you great guests who are on the cutting edge of their own becoming. And they're ready to just kind of give you a little push off your edge with some great thoughts and ideas to help you along your very own life mastery journey. And why else is it groovy? Oh, because it's Life Mastery Radio Day. That's
right. That's why it's Thursday, Life Mastery Radio
Day. Jackie, how are you, my friend? Here we are. It's another week.
It's another week. Gosh, you know how they used to say time passes faster the older you get? Isn't it true? It just feels so true. I remember as a kid, couldn't wait to be 16 so I could date or drive, and now it just seems like, wait, that was last week. It seems like that was yesterday. Anyway, yeah, but things are good. Lots of exciting stuff happening. I wonder how I'm going to stay on top of all of it, but somehow
you'll do it.
I'm getting the important stuff done, and that's all
I'm right behind you, so don't fall down because I don't want to step on you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the kids are in full swing now, preparing for their TEDx talks, and we've been given a pretty clear formula that they're going to want to use to put everything together, and it's kind of new for them, so I'm coaching them through it.
We want to give a big shout out too. You can go to Life Mastery Radio Facebook page. That's Life Mastery Radio with Todd and Jackie. And Jackie has a student that lives in Hawaii. His name is Samuel. Mm-hmm. And Samuel qualified to be on the TEDx stage here in Bellevue, Washington, which is close to Seattle.
Yeah.
And you might just need a little bit of help getting him here. We're dedicated to getting him on that stage. But if you could help out a little bit, go check it out. Jackie has a what do I want to call it?
Campaign. Fundraiser campaign.
Yeah. Help Samuel get to the stage. That's what we want to do. That's cool.
Right. Got to get here with the parent. So helping him with travel to get here.
How old is Samuel?
He's 15.
Can you imagine in 15 years old and getting an opportunity like this? It's just amazing.
It is amazing. And Uma is 12 and Srinika is 11. So these are the 3 students that I mentor that are going to TEDx, and it's so thrilling to help them with the messages and know they're just going to give so much to the world when they get out there. So this is what I'm doing this for.
Yeah, and you have a lot in common with our guests today too, because both of you are all about supporting children, and it's pretty cool.
We see there's a lot of need that kids have, and she and I come from different perspectives and different skill sets, but we're working toward helping kids to be empowered.
We'll have to talk about it because her book that she wrote is about COVID, but COVID, we'll talk about it, but COVID really goofed things up. It just made everything. It's kind of like taking everything and throwing it in a blender and pushing the button and then pouring it out and see what you got, right? And then you got to work on rebuild. But
it's kind of like a wildfire. I think it kind of hit us that quickly where we were unprepared for it. And in some cases it wiped a lot of us out, or, jobs or schools or things like that. And now we kind of have to resprout ourselves and look at new growth and where's this taking us? and it seems to kind of be making a comeback, unfortunately. Lots of people are getting it again or getting it for the first time, and anyhow, it's going to be with us forever now. I think we just have to get through it. So I
I want
know.
to remind our
Well,
listeners that today's show page is at www.lifemasterradio.net or .com, whichever one you prefer. And you can go there, and any links that we talk about with our guest today will be right there. Later on in the week, Jackie's blog post will be there. She writes a really nice post about the show and what we talked about, and it's a great synopsis. And I guarantee you it will entice you to go to the YouTube channel and watch the YouTube video of the show. So check it out, lifemasterradio.com, and links to both our books are there, and you can sign up for the newsletter. The newsletter goes out once a week. Jackie does a great job with that, and it highlights who's been on the show, who's coming on the show, and of course her infamous blog post about the most recent show. So it's kind of cool. All things
yeah, we
like
got some great guests coming up this spring, so something to look forward to. Yeah.
Stay tuned. Okay. I think we've burned up enough time. It's time to bring on our guest. She's sitting there so patiently with a big smile on her face, and this is Jackie's friend, so I'm going to let Jackie introduce her.
Yeah, I'm very honored to call Terri Brinston a friend. She is also an RN. She's an educator. She's a motivational speaker. She's a coach. She's a consultant. She's an author. And she's dedicated to guiding individuals toward the realization of their life goals. Terri's extensive professional journey has been marked by resilience, exemplified notably in her triumphant recovery from COVID-19, an experience that profoundly deepened her appreciation for life. In her impactful book called Grateful for the Journey Surviving COVID-19, Terri imparts valuable life lessons drawn from her personal odyssey. Her narrative serves as a powerful motivator, urging readers to embrace life's teachings and maintain hope and faith amid adversity. Terri is deeply committed as well to shaping the future with a particular focus on the holistic development of children. And she has a business called My School Nurse Consulting Services, and it supports her mission to help the kiddos. So, Terri, we've got a lot to talk about. So happy you're here. Welcome to Life Mastery Radio.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Todd. I'm looking forward to this interview.
You know,
Okay.
I was watching some other interviews
Uh-huh.
that you had done, and Jackie and I kind of opened the show up with a little bit talking about COVID and your story, and you got to share it with us. I've never heard somebody that was affected in such a way as you were. I mean, you lost your memory. You didn't know certain things when you recovered, and I didn't catch it. But how long were you in the hospital with COVID?
I was in the hospital for 30 days
Hmm.
and so on the vent for 15 days. And so it was in the very beginning, like in March when Michigan really got hit hard. I think it was a week after they closed the schools. I'm thinking it was a week before spring break. So I'm thinking I have a co-vacation, right? I'm going to be off for, an extra week. Ended up being off for, a couple of years. But yeah, in the hospital for a month. So it was quite crazy because, society didn't know what was going on.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's when I
So is
left.
it safe to say then that you were one of those very early statistics when we were
Absolutely.
all just kind of getting the word out? And so
Right.
you were teaching at a high school
Mhm.
when that all went down. The school had been closed. Um, and what were some of the early signs that you were getting sick?
It's so weird because it happened so quickly. I left my classroom and the students were saying, Miss Brinston, how can we not get this? Because I'm introducing in my class, I'm introducing students to the medical field and they're saying, okay, what should we do? And I'm like, oh, it's a virus, stay out of people's faces, wash your hands, and I had just went to a conference the week before with over 5,000 teenagers.
Wow.
And so I didn't know where I got it from, right? So the very following week, I on like a Tuesday, I started getting very achy and achy joints, chills, and just flu-like symptoms. And I couldn't get warm. And I just remember just shivering. And while I was shivering, my joints were aching. And I'm watching the news and I'm hearing all of this. Oh, if you have this symptom, I'm like, yeah, I got that. You have this. Oh, yeah, I got that. And then I had everything except for a temperature. I didn't have a fever. And so I suffered that day on that Tuesday. And then that very next day, I spiked a fever and
Mm.
reached out to my business partner who is a paramedic. And I said, hey, what do you think I should do? I'm having these symptoms. And he says, go to the hospital immediately. And I was so grateful that I did because when we pulled up to the hospital, there were tents outside the door. And nurses were out, outside, or I don't know if they were just nurses, but they had their full isolation gear on, including a mask and a cap. And they had these metal clipboards, and they were triaging people in their car. You couldn't go in. And so if you had certain symptoms, you could go to the tent where they took your temperature and things like that. But if you didn't, they would just say, go home, right? So
Mm.
there was a line of people when we got there. It was probably like 5 people in the line. And by the time that we got closer to the front, it was probably like 20 cars behind us. And the crazy thing is I had to use the restroom. And I'm like, I gotta go to the bathroom. We're sitting in the line. And so hear me, I'm just gonna walk up there and ask them, can I go to the restroom? So I get to the front and they're like, you can't come in. And I'm like, I
Mm.
have to go. And I caught an eye with one of the nurses and she said, are you okay? I said, well, I have to use the restroom and I feel horrible. So she took my temperature and my temperature was 100 and I think it was 102, 102. And it just made the cut, right?
Mm.
Said, okay, I'll take you in. And when I went in there was no one in the hospital. It was very, very eerie, but it was all this commotion outside of the hospital. EMS was coming. Even the patient that was being brought in could not go in until they went through this triage
Oh my
and checked their
gosh.
temperature and things like that. So it was extremely scary because I think you could see the fear in the healthcare workers' eyes. They were very cautious about interacting and with us. Yeah, I remember that even the person who brought me in, she wouldn't let me touch any doorknobs, and she held the door open in the bathroom. It was just really, really crazy. But nobody was
Hmm.
in the hospital. And I'm thinking, okay, we went from chaos and no one is in the
Yeah.
hospital. Yeah, one
You
of the
didn't
first groups.
you didn't pull your RN card up?
No, I didn't. I try not to do that. I
Yeah.
get irritated when people do that, so I don't
No,
do
yeah, I totally get it.
it for sure.
So you were admitted, and then did you lose track of time? I mean, because I heard an interview, and I think you didn't even know you were married, right?
No, I didn't know I was married. I didn't know I had kids when I woke up from being on the ventilator. I just knew my mom. Like, where's my mom? And then,
I've never heard that. Wow.
it was very scary. Um, you
So they
know,
admitted you that day, or did they send you
they
home and you got sicker?
No, they actually kept me there
Okay.
so that they could do a COVID test. And they didn't have any more COVID tests, which was really
Mm.
weird. And this is,
It
I'm
was
just
in the
so
beginning.
grateful. Yeah, at the
Yeah.
beginning, they didn't have enough. And so they were like, well, we're going to send you home because we can't test you if you get worse. And I'm thinking, there's like 50 cars out there. If I have to come back, what am I going to do? And so I just literally just started praying and the nurse was getting ready to sign me out, and she says, "Oh, here's a COVID test." And it was just sitting right on the counter, and I'm thinking, are you serious? So she did a
Yeah.
COVID test, and which mean that, it's not an instant test that they had to, like it is now,
Process it,
they
right?
had to
Yes.
process it. So
Yes.
they said, okay. And I was feeling okay. I just had a temperature, but within the next like hour or so, I just started crashing. Like I was having problems breathing,
Hmm.
fever got higher, I was nauseous. And then they were like, okay, we're going to go ahead and admit you. So we went from within in a span of 2 hours from you're going to go home to, okay, we're going to admit you.
And
And
how are you emotionally feeling, Terry? Is this starting to feel frightening to you, or are you feeling like this is just another virus? Why are they overreacting? How are you feeling
I
about
was
this?
extremely frightened
Hmm.
by what I saw outside. The
Yes.
military, the tents, this is not normal, and so being, I've worked in the hospital, but I've been around medical for the last 30 years and in the crunches. And so this was not the same, so
Yeah.
I was very anxious. They wouldn't let my husband come in, of course. Because so when I got off the car to use the restroom, I called him. I said, the nurse said, just go home. You can't get in.
Hmm.
And so that was the last time I saw him, 30 days later. And so
And
very
he
nervous.
never
Very
developed it? I
scared.
know it's a little side note, but he
No,
never developed it?
no,
Wow.
he never got it.
Okay.
He never got COVID, which is a blessing, which is really weird, how people got it and some people didn't.
Right.
So yeah, it definitely attacked my weakest areas. I felt, that's what I don't know, it impact everything with me. When I get stuff, I get it good. So I got it real good.
You do it all the way.
Yeah,
So did they put
I
you
don't
did
mess
you
around.
did you have to be on a ventilator from that first day then?
No, actually, I was in the hospital for about 4 days.
Okay.
And so I remember those well. I couldn't, my breathing started to decline and I was on oxygen. So anytime I took off the oxygen, I couldn't breathe. And so my sats started to get really low. So well, you know how when you put a pulse ox on your finger and you
Mm-hmm.
should be like at like 98 or higher.
High
Yeah.
90s, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was satting at like 60. And
Wow.
so I
Were you
wasn't.
coughing? Was
No,
there
I wasn't
phlegm?
coughing.
No, no
I
coughing.
just couldn't breathe hardly.
Interesting.
And
Huh.
so I was sattin at 60 and it just kept going down and worse and worse. And they said, okay, we're gonna have to put you on the ventilator because you're struggling too much to breathe. And I'm thinking, whatever, just help me because I couldn't, I was
Yeah.
just my sister-in-law, thank God, worked in the hospital and as a nurse on the floor. And she was
Wow.
one of the nurses on the unit. And she said, because at that point, when my oxygen started to get so low, I don't really remember a lot of it.
Yeah.
But she said that, I would just sit in the room with the no TV, not on the phone, just really just sitting there, just clocked out. And she's like, oh, you gotta wake up. So it was kind of weird. And that's not like me. I'm like, I get a vacation. I can sit in a room and be on my computer, So
Now, were they giving you
yeah.
any medications, antivirals, or anything
They
like
were
that, or were
giving
they
me
just were basically
everything.
monitoring you? Okay.
Yeah, they were giving me everything that they were, testing out, but nothing was helping and I was just
Okay.
getting worse and worse.
And you
Mhm.
were still feverish and achy, and what are some other symptoms besides just weren't able to breathe? Was there
Just
other things that were
lethargic.
happening? Okay.
Just, when you can't get oxygen, you really
Yeah.
just
Shut
you
down,
just you shut down. And the only thing that, my body was rerouting the oxygen to vital parts, my brain and my heart.
right?
But the rest of my body was just, I just kind of clocked out. So then they
So I
eventually.
imagine when they put you on a ventilator, then they sedated you pretty
Oh,
deeply as well.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So a ventilator is when the machine breathes for you. So
Right.
took away that I didn't have to, exhort myself to breathe. It was breathing for me. Yeah.
Okay. So then
Mhm.
you don't really have memory after that point of what those 15 days on the ventilator were like?
Right. I dreamed a lot. And I do remember my dreams. And I've
Hmm.
recognized based on conversations with the nurses and my friends that there were certain parts in my dream that were really happening. For example, I said my sister-in-law worked at the hospital. So she would come down and she would look through the window. And she said, I would sit there and I would look at her. I vividly remember being in I guess it was a nursing home. And I can remember looking at my sister-in-law outside the door thinking, why aren't you coming in and getting me? And I'm thinking she had a scarf on and a hat, but what she had on was a mask and a cap. And so
Right.
I vividly remember that. And I kept saying, why does she keep, looking through the window? Why does she come in and get me? And she said that there was, I would just look at her and she was, would
Huh.
talk to me through the window and things like that. But I remember things like that. And they had a prayer line for me. And they were telling me that the machine was just going, the ventilator was just going crazy, with me trying to fight and breathe beyond the machine. And in my memory, in my head, I was at it was in Detroit, and it was a very green grass. And I was trying to get into this ball that was making all of this noise, which was the machine. And I
Yeah.
was like, let me out. I'm trying to get out. And I'm like trying to get, I'm like, why is this noise so loud? And my son, remember telling me, he said, man, we thought you didn't like it, because we kept hearing all this noise and you were fighting the machine. So it was just so weird how vivid my dreams were, and
Mm-hmm.
they were connected to what was going on in the room. Yeah.
They were real life memories.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then they took you off the ventilator and you stayed in the hospital another 15 days.
Right.
And
Right.
then they let you go, and boy, you had to readjust to everything. Uh, when I heard that, I was just like, wow, I can't even imagine what that would be like.
It was like waking up in a different universe. I really didn't think I thought I woke up in the wrong world,
Hmm.
because when I went in the hospital, everything was kind of normal. And when I woke up, well, when I woke up, I thought I was being trafficked because, can you imagine being in an environment and you're waking up and you're seeing all of these people around you and you don't know, nobody looks familiar, right? So I thought in my mind, I thought I was being trafficked. So I didn't want them to know that I was awake. So I talk about that in my book, how I was just kind of hiding and looking for an opportunity to escape because I thought
Hmm.
like I said, I was being trafficked. But the world was normal. And now, I'm talking to my the nurses, and they're saying, and looking at the news, and I'm thinking, they're putting people in, ice arenas and holding these bodies. And it's like, what is going on? And we're having Easter, and it's like nobody's going to mass. And it's like, I'm watching the news, and it's like, okay, this is not my world. Somebody made a mistake. And so in my mind, and plus I was a little out of it, I did not think that this was the right world. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, because by that point, a month or 6 weeks into the pandemic, it
Mm.
was chaos.
Yeah.
And so, you probably had this, as you described, this sort of military outside the hospital situation going on
Mhm.
that's still maybe in your memory to some degree. Now you wake up and it's still chaotic and crazy. And I'm certain too that the nurses though were celebrating the fact that you woke up because like
Oh,
you
yeah.
said, there were a lot of people not waking up from
Mhm.
this, and you did. And so, what a blessing, though. I was going to say that your sister-in-law is this your husband's sister?
My brother's sister.
Your brother's okay. So, because I was thinking, somebody had to be able to communicate with your husband, right? Because he probably wasn't being told much
Yeah,
during
it
that
was
period of
it
time.
was very difficult for the family,
Yeah,
because, I didn't have my phone. Um, well, I wouldn't even know who to call personally,
yeah.
because I didn't really know anybody, but she was the lifeline for sure. My mother is living, and so she was very, worried, and my brothers and sisters, and so and my children, I have two boys. And so she was the one who was able to let them know that I was okay, that I was in good
Wow.
hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was definitely a blessing having her there with me.
That is just an amazing story. I mean, of course, that made a great book, right? but the book is about your gratitude. So,
Mhm.
I just went through cancer and radiation and chemotherapy, and there was a lot of things that I woke up to that I found gratitude in. And that's what your book is about, right? It's about the gratitude for that journey. So share with us some of those things that became revelations for you.
Yeah, it was because I had lost a lot of memory and I couldn't really figure out time, like where I was and how I became a nurse and some people and why did I know them. And so I was very confused and I started and then, knowing that I was confused and really kind of embarrassed about it and not really,
Oh,
wanting
I
to tell
bet.
anybody. And so I was seeing a counselor, and this was a recommendation from my brother-in-law, one of my nephews, which is a nurse, and he's a mental health, and he's a mental health nurse, and he said she needs to see counseling. So I was so glad he did because through that, talking it out really helped me to really figure out what I knew and what I didn't know, because I didn't
Mm.
know what I didn't know, right?
Yeah.
And so she told me to start writing out what I remembered and the things that what was coming to me. And as I was writing, I was like, oh, I remember this. Oh, I remember that. And so when I wrote the book, I really wasn't writing a book. I was really evaluating my life to try to put things in order of why was I a nurse? Like I looked at my resume and I looked, this woman is so confused. She's a nurse, she's a doctor, has a I have I'm a cosmetologist, I'm a teacher, I'm a legal nurse consultant. I'm like, what was I thinking? I didn't know why I picked those paths. And it was just so confusing to me. And like, how do you
Hmm.
ask somebody that? You know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I started really just piecing my life together through my journaling and figuring out, why did I pick these paths for myself? And so while I was doing that, I was really reviewing and remembering great times and horrible times. And, really looking at how my life was being orchestrated and like, oh, if this wouldn't have happened, this wouldn't have happened. Oh, this is why it happened. Oh, this is why it happened. And I really started to really connect to the fact that God really orchestrated every aspect of my life to
Mm.
bring me to where I am. And I was just so overwhelmed by, even how I met my husband and having children and being intentional about raising them. And, I had thyroid cancer and I had, a lot of different scares with medical issues. And I used to, now that I remember a lot of things, but as I was putting things together, I'm thinking, man, I got a lot of growth through healing. I
Yeah.
became more mature as I was struggling through certain things in my life. And so that's definitely where the title come. Grateful for my journey as I start to remember who I was and why I picked the paths that I have decided to be on. And it just I was enlightened by that. And it was all because of the disease process of me going through COVID and coming out of it. Very grateful.
What a beautiful gift you've been given, Terry, that you could objectively
Reflect.
step out of your life and look at it completely from a different angle
Yeah.
and find value in who you are that way. I mean, that because we all struggle, I think, from time to time to feel self-worth or to feel like we're on the right path or that our mission matters to other people. And
Mhm.
yet you had this beautiful opportunity to look at yourself as if you weren't yourself and go, this is an odd person.
Right.
And then what kind of walk through, well, now I see why maybe she did this kind of thing. and realizing the value of that person and then going, well, that's me. That's me. There's value in me for that. I mean, how beautiful.
Yeah, it was, and when you really think about it, I really had a victim viewpoint when I was growing up. Because I had a learning disability when I was in school. And so I would always think about, man, I'm stupid, I'm ugly. And I really carried that thought about myself. I had very low self-esteem or low, I just didn't think of myself highly. And so after this experience, I just have a total different viewpoint of life, more of a gratitude versus a victim. And so that was a major, major switch for me.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of people, I'm just constantly never satisfied with my accomplishments, never smelling the roses, going from this degree to that degree. I was actually getting ready to go for my doctorate degree because it felt like I just could never be good enough for me. You know what I'm saying? And so
Mhm.
going through this experience really helped me to embrace the fact that, you know what, you are good. You've done some great things. You have an amazing family. You have children. You have, just that level of gratitude. I don't feel like the victim anymore. I don't feel like, why me? Even when I got COVID, I'm like, "Oh, of course me, of course I'm gonna get this." And then it's like, well, a lot of times I think that people do walk around and they're like, why me? Why is this happening to me? But why not? Why not you? And
Yeah.
so it really kind of changed my perspective of life.
Kind of an awakening, right? Would you call it a
Absolutely.
spiritual awakening? Was it a
Absolutely.
yeah, a true spiritual
Absolutely.
awakening?
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. Very more intentional about, studying God's word and where do I fit in this plan? And really listening and not allowing things to not allowing things to just pass by me. When I this year I was talking to my husband, I'm really approaching this year with my New Year's resolution as no regrets. So what does that look like? When someone comes to my mind and you know how you think about people and it's like, give them a call. It's like, okay, I'm going to give them a call.
Right.
No regrets. When I'm tired, go to sleep. When I need to handle my self-care, things that
Or
we
take
we
for
miss,
granted.
you know. So yeah,
Yeah.
being just really grateful and just taking advantage of opportunities that are being presented to me.
So do you feel then that you've had a newfound purpose or mission for all you do? Is that what COVID did for you? And second to that, I wonder if you still have some physical um
Limitation.
leftover. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. What's happening with you physically since the
right.
COVID?
So I definitely have long haulers or whatever they call it,
On COVID.
Well, yeah. And so much better now. Memory loss was something come and go.
Mm.
My depth of time is something that I struggle with. I convert back often, not as much as I used to, but like last year it was horrible, meaning I would convert back to that little girl who felt self-conscious, and forget the accomplishments that I have, that I've graduated from college and different things like that. So, and I have to say, wait a minute, I have to kind of pull myself out of that. Um, Feeling a lot of mental issues. I did have some brain damage and some lung damage, and my lungs are fine. I do struggle with hoarseness a lot more than I used to. So I'm still struggling with some things with that. But I am very passionate about working with youth. And of course, it stemmed from my struggles. And I have a nonprofit, I have a for-profit, and I work and I do a lot of stuff, and I get bored quick. So So when you said, did it make me more passionate about my path and my decisions? Yes. I was already walking in my path. Now I kind of feel like a sense of urgency.
Mm,
Like I need to get this stuff done. I need to help these young people. I need to develop this program. I need to work with these schools. Before it was like, oh, I have all the time in the world. I'm going to critique this. You know what I'm saying? So I think
yeah.
the biggest change is a sense of urgency. For a while, I thought, okay, God spared me because he wanted me to just see my family again, and then he was going to take me home. Right. And so, my counselor said, maybe you just kind of feel like, because of the scare of, near death experience, you just never know how you're going to be impacted by it. But that sense of urgency, wherever it's coming from, I do feel like I got to get it done now. I
Hmm,
need to stay focused and get it done.
cool. That's really neat.
How about
Um,
your faith? Did your faith change?
Um, Deeper.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've always been, really committed to my faith as a Christian. Um, but go to church, pray,
right.
when I can. And, it's like walking out those things that we have to do or we feel committed to do. Now it's definitely different.
Yeah,
Um,
more
while I
connected.
was on the vent, when I came off, while I was on the vent, not on the vent, after I came off the vent, I was very fearful that I was going to die and I didn't want to go to sleep.
mm,
And I would feel this presence in the room. And I'm like looking around, like, nobody's in there, of course, because nobody wants to be in the room with us, when you have COVID. And so just feeling a heavy presence. And then I was so, I don't know, it was just, it's like being in pain and having all of this anxiety and recognizing that, getting to a point where I just couldn't hold it anymore and just calling out and then feeling the pain disappear, the
hmm,
anxiety of it disappear. It was like, okay. It was like God just said, okay, I'll hold it for a minute. You know what I'm saying?
wow.
And it's
Yeah.
so those types of experiences really connected me to my faith and wanting to know more about, okay, the Holy Spirit and, my life as a Christian. And so diving into my studies definitely has changed because of this experience.
How about
Yeah, because
your go ahead,
go
Todd.
ahead, Jack.
I
Go
was
ahead,
just going
Jack.
to ask about your sense of of being an RN. Has this provided a little more insight or empathy, for lack of another word, for the things that patients go through, the feelings that are might be common for someone coming out of an illness like that?
Absolutely. Empathy not only for the patient, but for healthcare workers in general. Like the level of care that I received was amazing. These people, my colleagues, put their lives on when you have I mean, I was dying, and I could give it to you. You know what I'm saying? And they didn't, all the unknown, and they selflessly came in and provided care for me.
Mm,
And I remember just feeling so isolated, being isolated for this time, and people wave at the
Right.
door was very scary. And I was in the using on the in the on the bathroom, and I couldn't get up, and I was away from my oxygen just way too long, and I pressed the call light, and one of the aides came in. Of course, she was all geared up, and I'm just bawling. I'm like, I want my mom. Like, I need somebody. And she stood in front of me and let me lay my head on her stomach. And she
mm,
just raked my hair. And I was like, I don't know who she was. I didn't see her face. I couldn't, she could walk by me today. I wouldn't know who she was. But she saved my life that day, And so just little things like that, as a healthcare worker, this is what we used to do, but it gave it so much more value. And I'm
Yeah.
able to really pour into my students the importance of making sure that you're paying attention to the patient and not just treating their illness. So absolutely, it definitely changed my viewpoint. I've never been in a hospital that long, so for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's where I was kind of going to go is, you're dedicating your life now to teaching kids. I think your heart is really into teaching kids about your profession so that they could maybe look at that for their profession. And I was just kind of curious how that perspective changed. And you just said it by relating to the students, patient care is critical. And that's the critical piece to healing. It isn't so much here, eat this pill. It's,
Right.
hey, how are you feeling today? And is there something I can do for you? I know when going through my ordeal, the nurses were so curious about how I was doing and how I was feeling. And it made a huge difference. I'd show up for an infusion and they were all like, how are you doing today? Are you okay? And what's your mental attitude like? And instead of just asking the question and turning around and walk away, they'd actually sit down and look me in the eyes and really probe me for those in-depth answers.
Right. Absolutely. It makes a difference. It makes a difference in the healing process, because it's really easy to, slide into a depression when you're ill,
Don't
you
feel
know.
Yeah.
well, right?
And so, yeah, we don't give our healthcare workers enough credit for that. We truly, especially nurses, I'm a little biased, but we look at patients holistically. We're looking at every aspect of them when we're dealing with them. And so that is something that I think that should be instilled in all of our healthcare providers, not just nurses, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so let's move then to you're a high school teacher and you're teaching um, kids medical knowledge.
Mhm.
Tell us about that and other ways that you're empowering our youth, because I know that's a big mission for you.
So I teach health occupation at one of the largest high schools in Michigan. We have over 6,000 students.
Wow.
That's
Um,
incredible.
it is an amazing facility. The kids are outstanding. We have children from all over. I've also taught in other high schools as well. But one of the things that I do is I introduce them to the medical field, and I try to, I tell them at the beginning of the year that I have two objectives. One is they will decide to go into the medical field. And two, they will decide not to go into the medical field, right? And so I want to make sure that we get the right people in the right field. And so I teach them medical terminology, anatomy, and physiology. I certify them in EKG. They're certified in that. I'm a BLS instructor for American Heart, so I teach them, I certify them in that. And so just making sure that they have the foundation to really enter into the medical field and take off and really do well. But one of the things I've been teaching for over 25 years, and one of the things that I found is that learning the concepts to go into medicine is hard, right? And so some of our kiddos, they struggle with recognizing their worth.
Hmm.
And I have to get them to that point where they recognize that they have the capability. And it stems from the fact that when I was younger, I didn't think I had the capability. I, thought I was stupid, but here I am, a nurse with a bachelor's degree, right? So clearly no one told me that I, could do anything I wanted. I was only labeled as this person with a learning disability.
Ability.
And so I was never poured into, of course, they did the best that they could do, but I was not convinced that I had the capability until I was much older, right? So I started recognizing that the students were still really struggling with my content because they didn't have the ability to recognize that they were able to grasp it, right?
Mm.
And so I consider these as being barriers, and learning disability or lack of
So, so
confidence.
did COVID, do you think, Terry, that COVID had something to do with that too? Because, Jackie and I opened up the show, and this was just a major shakeup through our entire society.
Mm.
So do you think that had something to do with it too? I mean, there
I
were
think
so many kids that got lost.
I think it escalated it, and also brought attention to it is happening. It's been happening.
Yeah.
Mm,
It's just that we didn't know or
we
wasn't
didn't
paying
know.
attention. I think, okay, this is Terry.
That's
This is
fine.
my
That's who we're
opinion.
talking to.
What I believe is that it was easier for us to blame it on these are bad kids, and they just do stupid stuff, and so schools really focused on behavior,
Yeah.
and not focusing on why this child is exhibiting this bad behavior. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why is, so it was just, and then the young people who did not stir up any issues, we just ignored them because they were able to be taught, right? They
Right.
were getting, kind of getting through, and so we didn't really pay attention. So I think now I'm so grateful that we are paying attention to mental health. This is not a new problem. This
No.
is a problem that we're starting to pay attention to. And
And you're
so,
right. We ignored
yeah,
it. We ignored it up until now. I mean, there are so many gifts from COVID. It's just, if you look for them, you will find them. But COVID really shook things up.
yeah.
My opinion.
Yeah, it did. It did. It made us really pay attention to a lot of the disparities. Mental health is now, people are paying attention to mental health. People are paying attention to the fact they have to have processes for supporting young people who have mental health issues and physical health issues. And so, yeah, it did. It did a lot for our
Kind of
society.
shined a light on social media too, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. The impacts of social media, but it was always there.
It was
You know,
there,
it was
but
there.
it
Just
wasn't
didn't know
until we
about it. Now,
got
teachers knew
more.
about it. Nurses knew
Yeah.
about it, but people did. They
So,
don't.
so tell us about your business then, the My School Nurse Consulting Services. What is your business doing to support the kids and
Yeah.
schools?
Well, I through my school nurse. This is I've been in business since 2017. So when I worked at a school, not the current one I'm at, but the previous school, they didn't have a school nurse. So every time that there was an issue with a kid, had asthma attack or diabetes or whatever, they would come get me. But I was a teacher, I wasn't the nurse. And so I started like really recognizing all of the gaps
Mm.
between the policies, the lack of knowledge of the teachers of how to support these children that were with us the majority of the day, who had physical ailments, asthma, diabetes, dealing with just a plethora of things, and recognizing that the schools weren't really equipped to support the children. And so I started to provide just very practical processes for schools. Okay, let's look at the emergency cards and see what are we dealing with, you know? And I remember the first time I did that, I'm looking through the emergency cards, and it's because I asked, okay, do you know how many kids have asthma or diabetes or allergies?
No
Oh, we don't have
database.
any. We don't have it, we don't have this stuff. Okay, well, we got 20% of our kids who have breathing issues, asthma, allergies. It's like it was just eye-opening to the school, and it shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
Totally, because
And
the data was there, right? They had the
data was there in
information.
the emergency cards. So it's like, okay, doesn't it make sense that we have people here that know what to do if a child has an asthma attack or have an allergic reaction or have this or that has that? So, it was just quite simple. Figure out what are we dealing with? make sure we have at least somebody in the building that knows how to treat them or support them. Make sure all of our teachers have CPR certification and first aid, making sure the policies and procedures are there, making sure they're in compliant with, because the government, there are requirements that schools need to be in compliance with. And even giving medication, they can't give medication. And this is what I'm finding is drawers full of medication. It's like there's a process. You have to have a doctor's orders. It has to be signed off. And so anyway, just recognizing that there was so many gaps, so many things that could go wrong during a school day. And, I don't know about you, but when you send your kids to school, you're thinking they're being taken care of.
Yeah, is it not required that schools have a nurse on staff?
No,
That's
it's
not a
required that
requirement?
they have nursing services, but they don't
Mm,
have to have a nurse. No, it's not
well,
required.
see, that's new to me.
Yeah.
Because I always assumed that there was a nurse at school.
No, it's probably the secretary
Probably the secretary. So
who
they're
is
so they
answering
have
phones.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
too much for
Because
them.
it's funny now because I look back at my kids who are in their 40s and late 30s now. They would whenever something happened at school, and my son did have asthma, but they would say, the best the nurse is going to do for me, Mom, is she's going to give me a pack of ice and she's going to let me sit for 20 minutes.
She probably
And
wasn't
then
a
she's going to
nurse.
send me back to class. And I thought, really? That's what the nurses are doing? But now I'm figuring out it probably wasn't a nurse.
It wasn't a nurse.
So, wow.
When I first started my company, MSN Consulting Services, there was 78% of schools did not have school nurses.
Hmm.
78% did not. And so this is national.
It is
And
national.
so,
Wow.
oh yeah, absolutely. And so now you think about it now, now we're starting to really pay more attention, right? We want these nurses in the school, but isn't there a nursing shortage?
Yeah.
So you think a nurse is going to go into the schools when they can go into a hospital and make a lot more money? And
Right.
so what we do with my school nurse is I go in, help them to make sure that they are solid and they have all their policies, all their procedures, make sure their staff is trained. And if they need a nurse on staff, they have enough funding. Of course, they need it, but they don't have enough funding, especially when you think you have a school system with an average of 700 students to one nurse. Really? You need to have your staff be prepared as well.
Yeah.
So I go in and I make sure that I help them to identify what they need. And then I subcontract nurses, OT, speech therapists, mental health counselors, and social workers. So if they need this, then I can kind of guide them on how to pick the right people and get them to be able to help them.
Where can people go to find out more information about that? You have a website set up, right?
Yes, it's called myschoolnurse.co, myschoolnurse.co. And I provide all the information about the services that we can provide. You can fill out a form if you want to learn more or set up a strategy session where I just kind of talk to you to help you figure out what you need, because you may be set, right? You may have everything you need,
Yeah.
or you may not. And so what I kind of like to say is, school administrators, they're not medical professionals. They went to school to be, teachers or administrators or whatever. Let us do the health stuff.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
So it's more of a consulting service, right? You're consulting with
Absolutely.
administrations.
So
Very
MSN
cool.
Consulting Services, we are LLC, and we can work with any school, anywhere, because I consult with them, help them get where they need to be based on their state, and then I subcontract within their state. I
Oh,
vet
wow.
their medical professional to go in and work in their schools. So yeah, that's how I help schools,
Hmm.
help my kids.
You
Wow.
are
Bless
an
you.
amazing woman, and you're also trying to help populate that shortage of RNs. So I think, bless you, my friend. That's just amazing that's your mission,
That's
right?
my
Yeah.
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 Oh my goodness, ladies, we are just about out of time. Terri, thank you so much for showing up as you today and sharing your story. What an amazing, I've never heard a story like that revolved around COVID, and it's just amazing. I had no idea that it affected people so severely in that way.
Yeah, just a shout out to everybody who lost someone
Yeah.
from COVID. We lost so many people, and a lot of families, have a lot of void. So definitely, my prayers are with you. I'm constantly thinking about you, and I definitely had that, feeling as like, why me? Why did he spare me? And I try to make sure that every day that I represent that gratitude for being spared for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why you? Because you got the voice. That's why. Jack,
Amen.
any last minute takeaways?
Oh, thank you, Terry. Thanks for sharing with us today, and thanks for your mission and all that you do. And I'm happy to know you. So,
Absolutely.
and your book launches in April, so that'll be official. People can get it on Amazon right now, though, right? They go
Yes, it is
to,
available. It's a audiobook and also,
okay,
and so we're going to actually officially launch in April.
Did
good.
you
And it's
do the
called
did you
Grateful
do
for the Journey.
Yes.
did you do the voiceover?
No,
No.
I have a squeaky little voice. No.
Oh, thank you again, Terry. Hope you'll come back. And what's the next book?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see.
That's about all we have time for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. My biggest hope is you'll tell a friend about the show and these really cool people that have these amazing guests. Their name are Todd and Jackie, and they have some really cool guests that have some great topics that will support you on your very own life mastery journey. Lastly, please, please, please make it a great day, because it is all about choice. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to Life Mastery Radio. Join Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery through stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Visit their website, www.lifemasteryradio.com. Join their mailing list and be notified about upcoming guests. That's lifemasteryradio.com.